Welcome to the grand theatre of humour, where laughter is the only ticket you need. Let's dive right into the world of wit and whimsy, where even the mundane becomes amusing. You know, they say life is like a cup of coffee. It's all in how you make it or take it. Some folks are espresso people, strong, intense, can't function without it. Then there are the latte people, a bit softer, smoother, usually with some sort of fancy design on top. And then, of course, there are those who drink decaf. I mean, I don't want to judge, but decaf? Really? That's like ordering a salad at a steakhouse. And speaking of steak, have you ever noticed how the pressure is always on when you're grilling? It's like everyone around you suddenly becomes a Michelin star chef with an opinion. Turn it over now. No, wait, you're burning it. Well, at least it's well done. Well done? More like, well, done with your commentary, thank you very much. Ah, but isn't it just like life? Full of well-meaning but unsolicited advice. Like when you're driving and the passenger suddenly becomes a GPS with a panic function. Watch out, you missed the turn. Wait, no, it's the next one. Oh, never mind, you can take a U-turn 2 miles down the road. And you're sitting there, trying to focus, wondering if ejecting the passenger seat is an option. And then there's the universal truth of socks. You buy them in pairs, you wash them in pairs, but you rarely ever find them in pairs. They're like the Romeo and Juliet of the laundry world, always destined to be lost from each other. But hey, that's what makes life funny, isn't it? The coffee choices, the grill critics, the passenger GPS, and the tragic love story of socks. It's the everyday things that bring the most laughter. Remember, life is a comedy to those who think and a tragedy to those who feel. So let's keep thinking. Before we dive deeper into the ocean of mirth, a small request. You see, creating a comedy masterpiece is a bit like making a sandwich. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth does a sandwich have to do with comedy? Well, bear with me. The jokes and puns, they're the bread, the hearty foundation, the laughter and the good vibes, they're the fillings, the juicy, flavorful layers. But the likes and subscribes, oh, they're the secret sauce, the magic ingredient that ties it all together. They're the boost that helps us churn out more of these hearty, laughter-filled sandwiches. So, if you enjoy the feast of fun we serve up here, consider it your culinary duty to sprinkle some of that secret sauce. Not only does it make our day, but it also ensures we can keep the comedy kitchen running and the laughter coming. So, show some love and hit the like and subscribe button, because every click counts in the world of comedy. Let's venture into the land of puns, where words play, twist and turn to tickle your funny bone. Now bear with me, folks. I promise not to make these too grisly. Did you hear about the bear that went to the dentist? He wanted to get his bite checked. I guess he didn't want to bear the tooth of dental problems. And speaking of dentists, why do they seem to be such good problem solvers? Because they always get to the root of the problem, but you know, I always wondered why they looked so down in the mouth all the time. Now let's take a turn into the world of food. I once tried to make a belt out of herbs. I thought it would be a sage decision, but it turns out it was just a waste of time. And speaking of food, why don't eggs tell each other jokes? Because they crack up too easily. But here's a piece of advice. Never expect a yolk from an egg, because it might whisk you away. Now onto the realm of music. Did you hear about the musician who couldn't find a partner? He had too many treble relationships. But you know what they say? Love is like a piano. First you play by the rules, then you must forget the rules and play from your heart. And speaking of hearts, what did the cardiologist's friend give him when he moved? A hearty welcome. But I must say, cardiologists are all about good vibes. They have a lot of heart, but they can also be very artery. Now let's take a leap into the animal kingdom. What did the buffalo say to his son when he left for college? Bison. But I heard the son wasn't too happy about it. He said, "Dad, you're embarrassing me." And speaking of animals, why don't some make good comedians? Because they have a rough sense of humor. I guess the comedy business can be dog eat dog. Let's now take a stroll through the world of sports. Why don't basketball players go on vacation? Because they would get called for traveling. But, you know, it's not all about the game, it's how you bounce back. And speaking of bouncing back, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. But I must say, he really knew how to straw the line. Now, let's dive into the world of tech. Why don't computers take their coffee with sugar? Because they want to prevent Windows from crashing. But you know, they do have a bite of sweet tooth. And speaking of technology, why did the smartphone go to therapy? Because it lost its connection. But you know, it's not all about the connection, it's how you recharge. Now let's venture into the world of fashion. Why don't shirts ever get lost? Because they always follow the top route. But you know, they really know how to button up. And speaking of fashion, why did the belt get locked up? Because it was holding up a pair of pants. But you know, it's not all about the hold, it's how you buckle up. All right, folks, I guess it's time to wrap up our pun journey. I hope you found these puns as enjoyable as I did. Remember, a pun is its own reword. Well, that was puntastic, wasn't it? Now let's run a marathon, a joke marathon that is. Ready, set, laugh? Ah, the joy of laughter. It's like a warm cup of tea on a frosty winter night, isn't it? So let's dive right in, shall we? Knock, knock. Who's there? Lettuce. Lettuce who? Let us in. It's freezing out here. A classic, isn't it? Now, I'm sure we all have a friend who's a bit, shall we say, spatially challenged. Here's one for them. Why don't some people trust stairs? Because they're always up to something. All right, moving on to the world of work. We've all had that one boss, haven't we? The one who makes you wonder how they ever climbed the corporate ladder. Here's a joke that perfectly encapsulates that feeling. Why don't we tell secrets at the office? Because it's hard to keep a secret when you've got too many bosses and not enough cubicles. And speaking of work, let's not forget our tech wizards, the ones who speak a language all their own. Here's one for you. Why was the computer cold at work? It left its windows open. Now let's take a breather with a one-liner. I told my wife she should embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug. Ah, the trials and tribulations of married life. They make for some of the best joke material, don't they? Speaking of which, here's another one. Why don't married people go to the zoo? Because even an elephant can't remember their anniversary. All right, let's switch gears and jump into the world of animals. Why don't some birds use cell phones? Because they already have their own tweets. And speaking of tweets, here's a social media joke for you. Why don't some people use bookmarks? Because the rewind button on their VCR still works. Now, I don't know about you, but I love a good narrative joke. So here's a longer one for you. A man walks into a library and asks for a book on cliffhangers. The librarian says, "I'm sorry, but I can't finish that sentence. You'll have to come back next week." And speaking of libraries, let's not forget our bookworms. Here's one for you. Why can't you trust an author? Because they're always plotting something. All right, let's go back to the classics with a knock-knock joke. Knock, knock, who's there? Boo, boo-hoo. Oh no, don't cry, it's just a joke. And now, for a touch of the absurd, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Ah, the joy of a good pun. It's like a warm cup of tea on a frosty winter night, isn't it? All right, let's keep the momentum going with a one-liner. I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She seemed surprised. And now, let's dive into the world of food. Why don't we ever tell secrets on a farm? Because the potatoes have eyes, the corn has ears, and the beans stalk. And speaking of food, here's one for our vegetarian friends. Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing. And last but not least, a joke for our fitness enthusiasts. Why don't some people play hide and seek with mountains? Because the peaks always peak. And that, my friends, was the joke marathon. Hope you're still catching your breath. Let's take a stroll down memory lane and revisit some comedy classics. Now, what's a comedy journey without some timeless classics, eh? These are the jokes that have been passed down from generation to generation, bringing smiles to faces and laughter to rooms, regardless of age or era. The beauty of these classics is that they remain as funny today as they were when they were first heard. Let's start with a true classic, the infamous "Why was 6 afraid of 7" joke. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 8, 9, a simple yet effective number pun that's been a staple in the comedy world for ages. But let's add a twist, shall we? Why was the number 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 was a known 6 offender. Now that's a plot twist, isn't it? Moving on, let's delve into the animal kingdom with this classic. Why don't some animals play cards? Because they're afraid of cheaters. Now we all know that the animal kingdom is full of fascinating creatures. But who knew they had a sense of humour too? But wait, let's add our own spin. Why don't some animals play cards in the jungle? Because they're afraid of cheetahs and there are too many cheetahs. Now let's shift gears and head over to the world of occupations. This one's a classic. How do you make a plumber cry? You kill his family. Dark humour, I know, but it's a classic nonetheless. But let's lighten it up a bit. How do you make a plumber cry? You pull the plug on his favourite rubber ducky during bath time. Next, let's jump into the realm of the absurd with this timeless joke. Why don't we ever see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're really good at it. Now that's an image, isn't it? But let's take it up a notch. Why don't we ever see elephants hiding in trees? Because they've joined a secret squirrel society and have become masters of disguise. Now, let's head over to the world of food with this delectable classic. Why don't eggs tell each other jokes? Because they might crack up. But here's a twist. Why don't eggs tell each other jokes at the breakfast table? Because they might crack up and make a yoke of themselves. And finally, let's end our journey through comedy classics with a joke that's as old as time. Why was the math book sad? Because it had too many problems. But let's give it our own spin. Why was the math book sad? Because it had too many problems and even the calculator couldn't solve them. Ah, the timeless charm of these classics. They've been around for ages, yet they never fail to bring a smile to our faces or a chuckle to our lips. Whether it's a simple number pun, an animal joke, a job-related quip, or an absurd observation, these classics have stood the test of time, proving that humour is truly timeless. But what makes these classics even more wonderful is the ability to add our own unique spin to them, proving that while the structure of the joke may be old, the laughter it brings is always fresh and new. It's a testament to the power of humour and the joy it brings to our lives. So the next time you're in need of a good laugh, remember these classics. They've been making people laugh for generations and will continue to do so for many more to come. After all, laughter is the best medicine, and these classics are just what the doctor ordered. Comedy classics, they never get old, do they? As we near the end of our laughter journey, let's revisit some of the funniest moments. Come along for a jaunt down memory lane, but remember, it's not just any lane, it's a lane shimmering with the gold dust of giggles and the silver linings of smiles. Let's start with the opening salvo of jokes that set the tone for our laughter expedition. Remember the one about the chicken who went to a séance? Yeah, he wanted to talk to the other side, he said. I still wonder if he ever got his answers. Or the one about the man who lost his left side. He's all right now. I tell you, he's a right inspiration to us all. Oh, and let's not forget the cheeky one about the two antennas that got married. The reception was fantastic. Now that's a connection I wouldn't mind having. Then came our please like and subscribe interlude, where I shamelessly begged for your approval like a dog chasing its tail. It was a brief pause in our laughter marathon, but it was necessary like a comma in a sentence. And let's face it, even that had its funny moments. Who knew begging could be so amusing, and who could forget our pun-filled escapade? Puns, those little play on words that make us groan and giggle in equal measure, like the one about the guy who got hit in the head with a can of soda. Thankfully, it was a soft drink. Or the one about the claustrophobic astronaut. He just needed a little space. And let's not forget the pun about the baker who went broke. He couldn't make enough dough. Now that's a recipe for disaster if I've ever heard one. Next, we raced through our joke marathon, a 10-minute rush of laughter and hilarity. Like the one about the invisible man who turned down the job offer. He couldn't see himself doing it. Or the one about the thief who stole a calendar. He got 12 months, serves him time, right, don't you think? And then we took a gentle stroll through the hall of comedy classics. Those timeless quips that never fail to tickle our funny bones. Like the one about the three-legged dog who walked into a bar. He was looking for the man who shot his paw. Or the one about the two muffins in an oven. One says, "Is it hot in here or is it just me?" And the other one says, "Holy cow, a talking muffin." And so we've come full circle back to the here and now, having revisited the funniest moments of our laughter journey. We've chuckled, we've chortled, we've guffawed, and we've giggled. We've groaned at puns and laughed at jokes. We've been tickled by the classics and amused by the new. And with that, we conclude our laughter ride. Remember, a day without laughter is a day wasted, so keep laughing and stay tuned for more. Because life is better when you're laughing, and even better when you're sharing that laughter with others. So until next time, keep those corners of your mouth turned up. And remember, the world is a stage, and laughter is the best performance. So go on, take a bow, because you've been a fantastic audience. I'll see you next time for another round of giggles and guffaws. Until then, keep laughing.